Okay, so now we're going on to Kierkegaard. So it's this passage here. We'll not do the whole passage. It's very long. It's actually very complicated. But there are some really cool things about this in terms of sort of developing an exegesis. And actually what you'll notice as we go through it, it breaks down into sets of three. It constantly repeats a kind of a three-part structure. So, as always, we look at context. And in this case, he's looking at this idea of the hero. So let's get started. Now, first thing you're going to notice, it's so different from Leibniz, right? Leibniz was very sort of like logical, very almost scientific in the sort of precision of certain sort of very technical words. Now, the Kierkegaard is also very precise, but it's tricky because he doesn't use technical words, and there's a reason for that, right? Because remember, he's trying to be sort of more existential. He's trying to sort of speak to human personality, and let's look at what he says, right? So we're talking about the hero. And he says, "No one shall be forgotten who was great in this world." Now, what do we mean by that, right? Because we don't usually think of the idea of a kind of a Christian hero. We think of Christian saints, Christian servants to the truth, to the poor. So Kierkegaard's sort of playing a little bit, right, with a very ancient idea, the idea of the ancient Greek heroes. But he's nonetheless raising this question of greatness. And he says, but everyone was great in his own way, and everyone in proportion to the greatness of what he loved. This is interesting, right? So now greatness is linked to what it is one loves. And now you're going to see the three-part structure open up. For he who loved himself became great in himself. He who loved others became great through his devotion. But he who loved God became greater than all. Okay? So there's the three-part structure. And then, again, you're going to see it almost immediately. Now he says, these heroes shall be remembered, but everyone became great in proportion to his, this very unusual word, expectancy. Expectancy. So now here you need to do a kind of a bit of wordplay. You've got to think expectancy, expecting, like expecting a baby. So he's talking about some sort of idea of fertility, some idea of growth, some idea of new life. And then look at what he says, right? Again, you get the three. One became great through expecting the possible. Another by expecting the eternal. But he who expected the impossible became greater than all. Now, you'll also notice something really strange that's going on here. This is very Kierkegaardian, right? When people describe the Kierkegaardian, they mean something somewhat paradoxical. So he says the impossible, and that's clearly linked to God. Why? Because remember, it's a three-part structure. So the person who loves himself, this person loves the possible. The person who loves others loves the eternal. But the one with the expectancy of the impossible is greater than all because it's connected with God. All right? And then look at what he now says. They shall be remembered, but everyone was great in proportion. So you see, he's repeating this expression, great in proportion. Where was that? That was back here somewhere. There you go. Became great in proportion. Great in proportion, right? It repeats itself. And what? He says, great in proportion to the magnitude of what he strove with. Now, this is going to get quite strange. Now, first off, you're going to see the three again. For he strove with the world by conquering the world, right? So there's a kind of an antagonism here, a kind of an alienation, a kind of a struggle. And he who strove with himself became greater by conquering himself. But he who strove with God became greater than all, right? So you've got striving against the world, striving against the self. This is going to become a very Nietzschean. When we do Friedrich Nietzsche, we're going to pick up on this theme again. And then to strive against God. And this is kind of interesting, right? Because this suggests that the relationship to the impossible and to God is somewhat not negative exactly, right? But it's anxious, it's complicated, it's maybe even a little aggressive or a little accusatory. And then he says, thus there was strife in the world, man against man, one against thousands, but he who strove with God, greater than all. So there's a strife between God and the human. Thus there was strife upon earth. There was he who conquered everything by his own strength, and then he who conquered God by his powerlessness. So let's just wrap this up, right? Strife on earth, 1. Conquering by one's own strength, 2. And then conquered God by powerlessness. Very strange, right? So somehow what Kierkegaard is saying is that powerlessness in relationship to God is some kind of strife, but it somehow allows you and I, weirdly, right? Strange sounding, to conquer God. So look, we're going to unpack all this, right? We're going to have to spend a lot of time together, in the synchronous face-to-face sessions, sort of talking about these ideas, what they mean. But what I wanted to show you in this exegesis was the way in which there's a very definite structure. 3, 3, 3, 3. Right? So this makes for a good exegesis, right? You see these repeating patterns. In this exegesis, you'd also have to pick up on this strange word expectancy, and you would have to kind of believe what it is that you're reading, right? This idea of strife, this idea of striving antagonistically even with God. It makes sense for you and I to think about a strife against the world, a strife against other humans, but it seems odd to think about a strife with the founder, right, of the world. So we're going to have to get into, what Kierkegaard means by that. But it's a sense of his existentialism, a sense of like what is at stake, that something really important is at stake. And again, you're going to see how this idea feeds up later into Nietzsche, who in many ways is a very different kind of a thinker, right? Nietzsche's not a religious man like Kierkegaard, so it's a different kind of strife that we're going to see in the life of Zarathustra. But anyway, just want to show you that, and thanks a lot.